Welcome back to another Farm for Profit podcast from the Farm Progress Show. We are here with a special guest to kick off day 2. It is Kelly Garrett. We've had him on, past guest of the show, for as long as... You don't want me to read this?
Or you do whatever you want. I put it on the paper just in case you didn't know who Kelly was.
I hate Tanner's freaking words. Kelly is, I'm just going to go off the top of my mind, good friend of mine, Iowa champion, multiple Iowa champion in corn growing.
Yes, 17 through 21, excluding 20, the derecho year.
Yep. Ooh. So 3-peat?
16, 17, 18, 19, and 21.
4.
Yeah.
All right, so four-time Iowa champion corn grower, growing huge yields from Western Iowa, works with Extreme Ag. He's just a super farmer, super guy. Got him in a lot of backdoor chats, likes to drink some tequila maybe, likes his beef. So we're glad to have Kelly here. We're going to be talking about some cool things. So welcome, Kelly. How you doing?
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Tanner. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So having fun at the Farm Progress Show. You were here yesterday.
I was here yesterday, had a couple Extreme Ag responsibilities yesterday, a few more today, and Farm Progress Show, Commodity Classic, that's like Christmas for me. I really enjoy the progressive people, the new technology. It's just a great thing to be part of.
Anything that sticks out since you've been here?
The Sukup grain bins, I'm interested in those. I have 2 Sukup steel buildings, of course, and our shop and our cattle shed. Spray Tech has some new technology coming down. They're an Extreme Ag sponsor, and their products, one of my focuses this year was plant health. And Spray Tech being a Brazilian company, obviously in the tropics, plant health to them is a bigger challenge. So when you bring their products up here, we have seen great things, and I'm always interested in what they're bringing to market.
So what are you using to get these big old yields? Is it a one-stop shop, or is it just a conglomerate of things?
There is no secret bullet, no magic bullet. It starts with the planter. And when I started with drip irrigation, with Netafim drip irrigation, I put that in 16, was my first year, and they wanted me to enter the NCGA contest, which I'd never paid attention to before. I'd never been to the Farm Progress Show. I'd never been to Commodity Classic, any of those types of events. And I'm like, so I'm like, well, we can enter it, that's fine, but I didn't ever think we'd win anything. We didn't have any in-furrow on our planter. We didn't have any 2x2 system on our planter, no foliar applications. And we did put a little fertility through the drip that first year, and we came out with a 289 bushel yield. And
wow,
we won the state of Iowa. And, and that was on some...
On accident.
Yeah, I was. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. So, yes, you could say it was an accident. And I really thought it was a waste of time. And to be honest, the yield was 291. And at that time, if you were over 290, you had to replicate the yield. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. I'm not going to win anything. As usual, you feel like you're behind. And so I cheated the math, and I made it come in at 289.3, so I didn't have to replicate it, because I did not want to be involved.
The only guy to cheat backwards in the corn growing contest. And so then we win the state of Iowa, and then Pioneer. It was with Pioneer variety 1197, I believe, and Pioneer and Netafim then invite you to come down to the Commodity Classic, and I'm like, I'm not going to go, And my wife and my mom, encouraged me to go. So my middle son and I did, and we came down and we saw the people, and I'm like, I'm hooked. I met Kevin Matthews, and I from that point on, I was hooked. I still need to meet the rest of the Extreme Ag guys. I know they're running around here somewhere. Some of them are, but
Chad's here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I saw him in that video yesterday.
So it started off with the NutriDrip, the irrigation that is a drip line. This is a buried line throughout the field. What's it look like? Is it a spider web, or how's that?
There's basically a 7/8 inch water line. It's a lay flat, 7/8 inch water line every 60 inches throughout the field, and mine are 16 inches deep. And in other parts of the world, it might only be 4 inches deep. And it might be so dry, like way western Nebraska, that they have to water the corn up. So in those areas, they will have to plant perfectly parallel, and there's basically a drip line every other row, 30-inch rows, 60-inch spacing. For us, with our soil, we can put it in,
and just plant however we want because we're so blessed with our Iowa soil. And I only put on 1/10 of an inch of water a day. Even when we have, they talk about evapotranspiration, and when it's really hot out, the plant might be respirating 1/4 inch or 3/10 a day. So, with research, I've tried to replicate that and put that much on. It just saturates our soils because, again, we're blessed. And if I have a skip in the field for whatever reason, and you turn the drip on, in an hour or two, the water will come to the surface.
Oh, really?
But otherwise, with that root mass there, it'll soak it up and you'll never see it. The soil never gets wet.
And see, I would have thought it would have been every 30 inch, but you're every 60.
There are in some places where it's extremely dry, extremely sandy, that the water goes down, that they'll put it on 40s. And I have a couple guys, when they're really trying to chase things, I know there's one gentleman in South Dakota, he's on 30s. Because he felt that he could push his yields higher. And I obviously don't know about his soil structure, but I certainly don't need to do that.
So was any of the reason you went 16 inches deep for deep tillage?
We're 100% no-till. I went that deep because in my hills in western Iowa, I was worried about erosion and uncovering some of it. And, one of the things people worry about are rodents getting down and chewing on it. But neither one of those things has been an issue.
Have you had any issues with it?
With our hills, the pressure. Kevin Matthews, my Extreme Ag partner, good friend in North Carolina, most of his systems run at 50 pounds of pressure. I have a couple systems that are on flatter ground that run at 30 or 40 pounds of pressure, but my main system there by my house and shop, there's 120, 130 foot elevation difference, and it runs at 110 pounds of pressure. And you will find every weak spot. Oh, and there's one manifold under the ground, and that third year when we added this elevation, we added another 80 acres to it. We blew this manifold apart 3 times. Ooh. And Kurt Grimm and I finally dug it all up, put it back together, ordered a load of cement, and we dumped a whole load of cement on top of it and encased it, and knock on wood, it's held since then.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to fix it now if it breaks.
No. Now it's going to be a big problem if it breaks.
Yes.
That's interesting. So, I think of irrigation, I think of Nebraska, and I think of big pivots and big wells, really, really lots of water. How much water do you got to have for this?
Yeah, what kind of pressure?
My well, when they turned on my well, they tested it at like 1,500 gallon a minute.
Oh.
And
wow.
So there's a lot of water there. We're using about 400 gallons a minute. If we expanded and we needed to run like 2 different zones at a time, we have the infrastructure that we could water 800 gallon a minute, like in 2 different parts of the field. And we have purchased another piece of property there now that neighbors us, and I would say at some point we will irrigate that as well, and then that's what we'll run, we'll be using 800 gallons a minute.
That's a ton of water. How deep did you have to go to get that?
It's 180 foot deep.
We're 400 feet, and we're lucky to get 19 gallon a minute.
Yes. That's the difference. It's amazing, the difference between central Iowa and western Iowa with the water table.
So if we were to do that, we would have to have some sort of like a holding pond or something like that?
I have that. That's the only well that I have. And when we dug that well, it was $80,000. So now every piece of surface water I have is worth $80,000 to me.
Wow.
And all my other systems are on surface water. And actually, we, like always researching, always education, going higher, the EC of my water is high. And there's not too many salts, but there's enough. There's not too many bicarbonates, but there's enough. And there's not too many sulfates, but there's enough. And the sum of all 3 of those, the EC, the electrical conductivity of my water, is high. Then when you put fertility with that, at the levels we are at or wanting to get to, that can be a yield limiting factor. And the surface water is a much better source from that. The surface water is about 1/7 of the EC of the well water.
So do you have to treat your water with certain stuff for that?
We're trying. There really isn't. Again, there's no magic bullet for that. We're working on it. We think that when we add, the plan is that if and when I add these other acres, we'll probably put some sort of a well into the creek, and we're going to combine the 2 and try to have half surface water, half well water, because there isn't enough surface water there to do everything I want to do. But we'll combine the 2 to dilute it out.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just like he said, forward thinking, always trying to get educated, get some more knowledge behind the actions that you do. So we talked about using NutriDrip. Your drip irrigation is one of the tools that you use to achieve these higher yields. What else comes to mind that has been a key to your success?
So, then after becoming part of this high yield community, if you will, and seeing what these other operations are doing, we first added in-furrow to our planters. And, we were using some 624/6 and, the basic stuff that a lot of operations do. We soon found out that we wanted what I would call a cleaner product, and we didn't see a yield gain from that. So we moved on to, some Nature's, agro-liquid type products, things like that. Now, I will tell you, next year, I don't know if there will be any, NP or K, and there really isn't any N, but I don't know that there will be much fertility in furrow other than calcium, zinc, and some different biologicals that we have identified. From a nutrient standpoint, our biggest nutrient deficit is calcium, and it's because it's hard to work with. It gets tied up. There's, in my hills and the less hills, western Iowa, tremendous amount of calcium, yield limiting factor, but it's not available to the plant because it gets tied up so easy. So in furrow or foliar, we're applying a lot of calcium now where we never used to do that.
It sounds like we're talking to Bodie Kitchell.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I mean, I put a crap ton of calcium and expensive calcium on, with stuff this summer. So I'm hoping for some good results, but we'll see.
We are, one of the things, calcium. My soybeans. Last year we thought we had soybeans that were going to make 100. They made 80. And the reason is there was 20 bushel left laying on the ground because the branches can't support themselves.
Yeah.
So we made a V2 calcium application, and you can physically see the skeletal structure of that plant is so much stronger. And, it's just you're checking off all those boxes. Again, there's no magic bullet. You're checking off all those boxes. We produced the 100 bushel beans, we think, but we couldn't harvest them.
Couldn't harvest it.
Because our plant structure wasn't good enough.
So was that part of the Chasing Francis campaign that you were running last year, or was that 2 years ago?
Chasing Francis was last year, where we, Mr. Francis Childs in 2003 produced 442 bushel. In 2001, I think he was at 403, something like that. And I'd sure like to break that record.
Yeah.
Last year we were 387.9.
Oof.
So
Close.
we believe it's the third highest yield ever recorded, but I'd sure like to break that number.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Any chance of it this year?
No, we were hoping, but there's a couple little wind events, and I'm hoping that we'll be close to 388. But I'm going to just guess and say it'll be more like 340, 350.
Yeah.
Will be the best corn this year. We'll
Shoot.
see.
So you touched a little bit on the soybean side. I want to go back onto that track. You also are a proponent of early planting your soybeans, correct?
Yeah,
Real
yes.
early.
Yes.
Just a little bit early. So in the terms of Iowa agriculture, how early are you starting compared to what historically farmers have been doing?
Well, historically, as a young farmer growing up, everybody planted their corn and then they planted their beans. Mm-hmm. And really, beans are what I say is a mathematical crop. You have so many days until flower, and every 3 days you're going to put on another node. Well, every node is where the pods are going to come out. So the more days I can have, the more nodes I can produce, the more pods I'm going to have,
Mm-hmm.
Very mathematical. So the earlier I can put them in, the better. And a couple years ago, it was warm, so we thought, let's plant some in December. And then if it freezes, before they germinate, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll come up. Well, we had a March thaw, and they sprouted under the ground, and then we had a March freeze, and that did not work out.
Right.
And this last year, it was warm, and we had identified what we thought were some stress mitigation products, and they told me I'd be good to 25. So I planted beans March 21st, like 60 acres or something like that. And the beans came up, they looked good, and I'm like, this is gonna turn out. And then we had a night where it got down to 20, and we had to replant those as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you want your pile of money to be bigger at the end of the year, which is the important pile, plant your beans first and your corn second.
Yep. I would agree, and I was planning on doing that this year until April was the third coldest April on record, and then we got all the rain in May, and we didn't start planting anything until May 17th in our area. So it was kind of time to get the corn in, I guess.
Yes, that's right. The holy grail of farming is raising corn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before we move on to a different portion of Kelly Garrett, anything else on achieving high yields that you think would bring value to our listeners?
So we added the in-furrow, and we saw some gains from there after some research. And like I said, dialed in, and it's taken 6 years to really dial in where I think that we're at a spot where I feel comfortable now again, with the calcium, zinc, and the biologicals we'll put in furrow. Then we added a 2x2. And like a year ago, we had significant tests of that 2x2 system, and there's $25 worth of fertility, and it produced, in our trials, produced 16 bushel. $5 corn, that's $80 for 25 bucks. And then another trial we did was, I'm a big believer, again, plant health, Xyway. Xyway is a systemic fungicide that when it came out, they wanted you to put it in furrow, but sometimes if it's cold, it can hurt your germination a little bit.
Yep.
So I moved mine to my 2x2, 26 bushel yield gain. Wow. I mean, it's every one of these things that you're, and now this year I have a test, I should have done this the first time, all the fertility and the 2x2 versus nothing. Obviously 16 and 26 is 42 bushel. I don't expect to see 42 bushel, but I want to know what that whole package is. And and then the foliar applications, the plant growth regulators, the fungicide. This year we're, because of the dry weather and then the late rains that we caught, even with the late rains that we caught, we made an R5 application in our beans and our corn because we're worried about shallow kernels and we're worried about small soybeans. So we wanted to drive fertility at that point, but it's not the amount of fertility you're putting on, it's what you're putting on when to trigger the plant to push out more exudates to bring in more fertility.
Yep.
Out of your soil. Your soil is the first step.
Feed the soil and the soil provides back.
That's right.
Yep.
So in a nutshell, to get through the whole thing, those are the things we do to be a high yield, and we're always tweaking, always learning. It's not a destination, it's a journey.
So I also know, because this ties in, you do this plant food stuff and you have this trucking company. Is plant food part of this process?
Plant food is a huge part of the process because it's affordable. It's affordable to do this. I didn't ever set out to have a trucking company with 40 trucks and 40 tankers on the road, but the plant food is such an opportunity for us. And people talk about wanting to build their soil, and I disagree with that statement. Our soil, especially here in Iowa, again, is pretty special, but we need to balance the soil. And plant food has soil amending qualities because of the elemental sulfur in it, and it helps us balance the soil and unlock the potential of that. It's the number one step, the number one priority in your high yield quest.
So what is plant food, and where does it come from?
Feed Energy is the company that we truck for and work for, and our supplier of plant food, and it's a byproduct. Feed Energy takes the byproduct out of a soybean plant. When the soybean plant is done taking the soy hull off, done with the meal and the oil, there's a product left called soap stock. And soap stock is 10% solids, 10% soy oil, and that's what Feed Energy wants. So my trucks will go to Bungie and Council Bluffs, pick up their soap stock every day, bring it into Feed Energy. They acidulate it, which means they put sulfuric acid with it. They heat it up. This is oversimplifying the process, but They put sulfuric acid with it. They heat it up to 200 degrees and they let it sit. And then as it settles, it separates. They pull the 10% oil off and make liquid feed for hogs and poultry. They pull the solids out. They call them MGR. That's a high fat ingredient for a fat cattle ration. And then 80% of what I haul in is plant food when they get done. And so my trucks bring in the soap stock and bring home the plant food. And it's a wonderful situation for everybody involved. It would be an expensive thing for Feed Energy to get rid of, and it's our main source of fertility. There's about 20 million gallons available a year. We take it all, and like this year we'll spray on our own acres, and we'll end up in total we'll spray 50,000 acres of plant food this year.
Wow.
There's about $225 of fertility in 400 gallons of plant food, and we apply that for $70 an acre.
Yeah, that's a lot of gallons.
It's a lot of gallons. That's
why I said 40 trucks.
It's a big job, but again, with what we get out of the end of it, at the end, it's worth it.
So what's on-farm storage look like? Because the trucks are running year-round, but you can't spray year-round.
We have 6 lagoons that are lined with a poly liner, and we're registered with the DNR, we're registered with the Department of Agriculture, and we have to monitor those lagoons, and we store it there.
Is that treated like a manure then?
It's somewhere between a manure and a wastewater.
Okay, but
yes,
not too bad to get them done, build lagoons and.
No, you have to go through the DNR with the engineers and things like that, and but it's it's a process that we have accomplished.
So then you must filter it coming out of the lagoon if you're going to spray it.
No, the raw product is fine. In 400 gallons of plant food, there's 150 pounds of organic carbon. There's amino acids. All these things help with the crop and help with balance. I would say that we are the very definition of a regenerative operation.
I'm trying to think of a way to describe their sprayer, how they apply this, Tanner. It's like a big hog manure tank with a sprayer boom on it.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
We have.
Like you'd see in Europe.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a 6,500 gallon hog manure applicator with a stainless tank on it and 60 or 70 foot spray booms. We have 3 applicators.
And that would then go on pre-planting, or do you do anything post-emergence?
No, it's all, we start when the combines roll, and then we will spray, weather permitting, we'll spray up until the planters chase us out of the field.
That fits the logistics a lot better than trying to do it in season while plants are growing.
Right. Plant food, you don't, because of the acidity of it, you don't want to touch the plant. We do put it through the drip irrigation. One of the challenges of drip irrigation is if you have a calcium product or whatever, the calcium will build up in your emitters. And so by running plant food through with the acidity of it, we're cleaning our irrigation as we're applying fertility.
So you can just dump it right into your water holding?
We'll have a fertigation pump that pumps it in behind the filters. Gotcha. You're pumping in you're irrigating 400 gallons a minute, and you'll have 50 gallons an hour of plant food into that.
That amount of gallons, can you change the pH of the soil with that?
You really don't change the pH of the soil, but you change the base saturation of the soil.
Okay.
And I used to believe that we're changing the pH. That's really oversimplifying it. Then we get to the base saturation. In the less hills, we have perfectly balanced soil is 65% calcium, 12 to 15% magnesium, 3 or 4% potassium, okay? And amongst other things, but those are the high priorities for me. Mm-hmm. In the less hills, I can have 85% calcium, which squeezes out the potassium, which ties up my phosphorus. And that sulfur going in becomes the most attractive thing to that calcium, releasing the rest of the nutrients. You're basically making calcium sulfate in your soil, which is gypsum, when you apply plant food. That's when I speak of a soil amending quality, that's what I'm talking about. And you're balancing the soil at that point.
So if we wanted to get some of that in central Iowa, you'd probably have to get more gallons somewhere.
We have 50,000 acres available, and we have the demand for about 125.
Yeah, so not going to happen.
Not anytime soon.
Must want to pay more. Right?
Nobody likes change, and so I am pretty committed and dedicated to the people that gave us a shot first. And, so there's no new customers at this time unless somebody wants to drop off.
And you don't see that happening anytime soon?
Not with the price point we're at.
They have to find some more soybean plants.
That's right.
Well, you could end up putting a pipeline, just no longer you
pipeline it.
There you go.
Pipeline it right back to your lagoons.
There you go.
Get in with one of these ethanol pipelines, lay it right on top of it.
Just drop it in there, right to your place, Corey.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's perfect. So that's the crop side of your operation, but you also have livestock. So tell our listeners who don't know who you are a little bit about what the livestock side of your operation looks like.
We have a 500 head cow-calf herd, and had that my whole life. I'm 47 years old, and my dad loves the cows. That's his favorite part of the operation. And the cows are mostly black. We have registered Angus, black Angus bulls, and I think we produce a good product. I think we raise good cattle. I don't know that it is our cattle aren't any better than our neighbors, but everybody, most farms they do a good job.
Yep.
And we, because of my 3 sons coming into the operation and wanting to make room for everybody, and then just always wanting to do the best that we can, we have decided to go direct to the consumer with some of our beef. So we're keeping all of our home-raised heifers, and we're finishing them out, and they're all natural, no hormones, no antibiotics, and they're black. We have a black Angus affidavit, that we have made. We have to send in the registration of the bulls, things like that. And we've built a small retail store in our hometown of Dow City, Iowa. We have a website, and we'll open up. Today's Wednesday. We'll open on Friday.
Really?
Will be our first day, and it's glcbeef.com.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can order online. It's got some beautiful tomahawks.
Tomahawks are a big deal.
Seems like everyone that supplies a tomahawk never has a tomahawk in stock. I mean, like every website I've ever looked at, out of stock.
I have some in stock right now. I'll bring you some.
That'd be good. They're spendy. I saw that.
Our ribeyes are $25 a pound.
Yep. Yeah. Probably melts in your mouth though.
I think the average tomahawk is like 2.8 pounds. It's a pretty nice piece of meat.
That's a steak. Yeah. Was that process, getting certified by the state and all that? I mean, was it that hard?
No, it really wasn't. With the food inspector and going, and the key is, the hardest part is finding a processor that will take you on, because there just isn't enough supply, rail supply. We are now with Paradise Locker Meats in Trimble, Missouri, the Phantasma family. They've been there since 1946. It's about a 50-employee operation, and currently we're processing 10 head a month. They do a great job, and we're really happy. Every steak is packaged in a single package, cryovac. We're wanting to prove this out ourselves, but this packaging, it doesn't have to be frozen. And when it comes to us, it's frozen, but it can stay thawed out in your refrigerator for 60 days in this packaging and maintain its freshness.
Wow,
that's cool.
Yes. And so my middle son, Colin, is a senior in Iowa State at Animal Science. This will be kind of his project to run point on. Mm-hmm. And he is going to thaw out a steak and leave it in the fridge for 60 days, and we're going to prove this out on our own.
Nice.
So because I've seen a couple of demonstrations being connected to the Iowa State University locker, their butcher program, and they like to age their beef on public display right there. I don't know if you've been across the can, which is just fascinating to me, because they'll put the dates, this has been out for 3 weeks, or this has been out for, and I've never gotten brave enough to try one or buy one, because it just seems weird with meat just laying out there. But then you think about, historically, that's all, prior to technology, we had available is you salted the meat, you cured it, and we didn't have fridges.
Right, that was how they preserved it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paradise dry ages at 14 days for us. They loin it out, and then like the ribeye, the sirloin, the strips, those things will dry age for 14 days. The hamburger, the other things gets ground up right away, just out of from a storage standpoint. They use the bottom round, and we're making beef jerky, and the beef jerky is tremendous.
Nice.
We're selling that in a couple local convenience stores, and I get nervous when I start a new venture. I want to make sure it's going to go, but I'm really hopeful and optimistic that this will take off.
I know we used to take my FFA cattle to a locker in Des Moines, Amon's, and they'd dry age it for 21 days, I think, and no other locker did that, and you could tell a difference from one to another.
It melts in your mouth.
Yeah. So it's worth it. I think this direct-to-consumer thing is just getting started. I think people love where their beef is coming from, not going to the grocery store and not knowing where it was raised, how it was raised. So I think that's just a great thing. I mean, you're just going to have to watch out for Dan Byers coming for you, because I think he'd beat you up.
Dan Byers is our good friend, and yes, he's a stout guy.
Yeah, he's a stout guy.
That could be one of the most professional transition setups that I have ever heard Corey do. But another focus that you have outside of farming, but I would say is probably a big part of farming for you, is your focus on personal health. When did that start, and why is that important?
I became, Corey and I being friends with Dan and Jared McDaniel and Jake Owen and we can't forget Josh.
Yep.
That's something that we talk about a lot is trying to eat healthy and working out. Bodie, of course, as well.
Bodie,
I forgot about Bodie. You can't forget that.
Or Ben.
And Dan has given me a lot of help in the workout area, a lot of advice, as well as with the beef, because he goes direct to consumer with the beef.
Yep.
And a recent change for me was I got sick right before Memorial Day, and I had to go to the hospital. And I had diverticulitis. And the doctors there in Omaha told me they didn't know how they don't know what causes it, and they don't know what to do to prevent it. It's just something you have to deal with, and that, you know, it's under research, but they didn't know. So at that time, because of my reading and research, things like that, I have switched to a carnivore diet. So ever since Memorial Day, when I came home, I haven't eaten anything but meat, fruit, and nuts. And I maintain that because I believe it's better for my digestive system. And it's not something that the medical establishment talks about or is probably okay with. And my wife is an RN. She shakes her head at me sometimes. But I feel great. I haven't had any other problems. I've not tried to lose weight, and since I got home from the hospital, I've lost 20 pounds.
Hey.
And I eat a lot of steak.
Because diverticulitis, that's
intestines.
And eating seeds can cause flare-ups.
Well, they used to say that, they don't anymore. Now they say they don't know.
Oh.
You know, but you know, my grandmother has had it. I've had a cousin with it. It appears to me that it's genetic in our family, and I needed to make a change to
it can get pretty serious. Did you have to have any intestine cut out?
They originally, when I went to the hospital in our small hometown of Denison, there was a concern that I was going to have a surgery and a colostomy bag. But when I got to Omaha, they said I didn't need that, thankfully, and I had 48 hours of antibiotics, and they said, come back if it happens again. Well, I don't want it to happen again.
No.
It was not a great 48 hours.
Well, hopefully the carnivore can keep you out of the hospital.
So far it has, and who doesn't love to eat steak every night for supper?
Absolutely. You got to have your own cattle herd to be able to afford to do that.
That's right.
You might have to start buying some cattle if you want to do that. So.
Yeah, there you go. Fill your deep freeze.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a big issue there. So what's on the agenda for today?
After this, I'll be over at Spray Tech on a panel there, and then we're going to go visit with Marone Bio. I'll probably go by the Nature's booth, I'm sure, things like that, and then of course your after party.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's tonight. We're ready, aren't we?
I think we're ready. I did grab the signs that I was supposed to grab.
Snark told me if I didn't come that we couldn't be friends anymore.
Yeah.
So I have
so
to
you
come.
have to come. You got to stay friends with Snark.
That's right.
That's pretty good.
I'm surprised he's not here yet.
He's usually up pretty early, but
yeah.
I did get a picture. He was at Prairie Meadows last night. So
oh, really?
Might have been a late night.
Okay. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Oh boy.
So you got a lot on your plate. We've talked on the crop side. You focus on your personal health. You obviously do quite a bit in your operation, from managing the trucking business, your livestock. Do you have any spare time, or what do you use your spare time to do?
We enjoy driving around in the Les Hills. Amber has a convertible. We'll do that a lot. We're going out to dinner, things like that. Extreme Ag is the reason I'm here, and do a lot of stuff with Extreme Ag at different field days, things like that. And I guess I consider that my free time because I enjoy it.
I heard she likes to drive pretty fast.
Amber likes to see how fast she can go.
What kind of convertible is it?
It is a Mini Cooper convertible.
Okay.
Oh.
So it's not much bigger than a side-by-side.
Right.
But that's her pride and joy.
I think I'd feel safer in a side-by-side.
I don't know. Side-by-sides are really expensive for what they are.
That's why she has a Mini Cooper.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, well, I think that was good.
Yeah, well, so we ask every one of our guests the same question at the end of every interview. And that's, what is the best advice that you have ever been given? So think about that. Corey, would you be able to summarize a little bit?
Yeah, today we got with Kelly Garrett first thing to kick off day 2 of Farm Progress Show here in the steel building of Sukup. Kelly's got some Sukup steel buildings himself. He explained to us before we got on the mics that it was a much better deal than he was getting double the building for just $20,000 more over a wood structure. How many years ago was that?
That was in 2013.
Okay, so 2013, I'm sure steel's gone up a little bit since then.
So has wood, though, probably.
Yeah, so has wood. Kelly is a 4-time Iowa corn champion grower,
387.9 was last year. That's our best ever.
The first year, he accidentally won and actually cheated backwards because he didn't want to get audited over 290. So he actually made his yield less, and he still won. So I think he's probably the only one to ever cheat and still win, and the wrong way.
Is it even cheating if you go backwards?
No, I guess you're giving the other guy a foot up.
A chance.
But he's got a farm-to-table beef deal at, what was it, GLT?
GLCbeef.com.
GLCbeef.com. It's going to be open this week. Get yourself a dry aged tomahawk. They look amazing. He's going to bring me some, so I'm going to hold him to that.
He's partnered with Paradise Locker, and it's the Fantasia family?
Phantasma.
Yep.
Would you think of another last name that would own a locker called Paradise? Phantasma. It just sounds like paradise. It's like a cocktail on a beach.
Yep. He's got a trucking company that trucks plant food, a byproduct from soybean plants that is the base of his nutrition and starts out his high yield dreams. And let's see. Oh, health journey. And he had some diverticulitis. And oh crap. Whoa. See, Tanner, I'm not used to doing this. Had diverticulitis, had a health journey. He's on the carnivore diet, doesn't want to go back in, has lost 20 pounds since he got back in the spring. Tanner pointed out part of his yield journey has been NutriDrip as well. That was what he stubbed his toe on and accidentally won the first year, and that's been the base of it as well. So, yeah, that's Kelly Garrett here.
Extreme Ag.
And and Extreme Ag. Yep, has been a big part of his life. That started 3 years ago?
March 1st, 2020. Commodity Classic 2020 is when we started. We're in our third year.
COVID.
And since Damien didn't want to come to the show, we had to take his place today to interview you. And
Damien is a handful at times.
Yeah.
High energy guy.
Yep. I've seen him speak before. He's good.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So Kelly, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
That you need to be humble enough to realize the biggest yield limiting factor on your farm is probably you.
Ooh,
I like it.
that was very concise and I think very accurate.
Yes.
No, that was great advice. And that's great advice to pass on to our listeners. And listeners, I challenge you just off of that. I'm changing my challenge to look at what you don't know. Challenge you to try and figure out what you don't know and what could be the limiting factor to your yields, because it's probably you.
I heard Kip Kohler say this year at Egg PhD, and he said it many times. This is the first time I've heard him say it in person. But if you can't afford to take 10 acres on your farm and research and try new things, and then if it works out, you'll scale them up, of course. But if you can't afford to take 10 acres on your farm, you're already broke and you just don't know it yet.
Ooh, another good one. That's a great way to end this episode. Kelly, we thank you so much for joining us here at Farm Progress Show 2022. Sitting here at the Sukup booth, we thank you again for your time, and listeners, we thank you for your time. So until next time, have a good one.
Thank you.